15 years ago, I had the honor of speaking to my father's company commander. At the time, he was a brigadier general. His name was Hank Thorpe. He relayed to me that my father was one of those NCOs that was experienced and provided insight and support to the younger soldiers in his battalion and platoon. He told me my father, based on his experience in World War II and Korea, was able to sit down with the troops and kind of sway their fears. And he was very thankful for my father's service. And I was thankful to hear from him. I was very appreciative of him calling me and told me what a great job my father did. One of the things he did mention, which was kind of concerning, was that the battalion commander was recently assigned my father's battalion, and he hadn't had command in 10 years. And subsequently, the concern was he didn't have the tactical experience. But that's the fog of war. That's what's happened in wartime. People go and people step up. And he had a good XO that assisted him, but no one knew what they were going to expect when they marched into LZ Albany. We were notified on 19 November. We lived in Columbus, Georgia, my mother, 3 brothers and 2 sisters, by a taxi cab driver, a yellow cab. I was 13 years old. The yellow cab driver came to our door about 2300 hours and delivered a telegram advising us of our father's death. 2 days later, the casualty assistant officer showed up. I applaud the military now because they do such a good job of taking care of the families when it comes to notification procedures. But back in the early 60s, this wasn't true. Subsequently, things have certainly improved. My dad was returned to us on 8 December, the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. Subsequently, he was buried in Arlington National Cemetery on 12 December 1965 with all other American heroes. He left behind a wife and 6 kids. My little sister, who's in the audience, was 10 months old. And she's 50. Stand up, Allison. She didn't have the memory of knowing my father, his love, but I assure her that he was a great man, and we missed him dearly. So I'd like to share with you a poem that was written by an individual named Robert Longley. He wrote this poem in memory of my father, and I think is applicable to all our fallen heroes. Somewhere north of childhood, a soldier gets his start. He learns a code of honor that fuels his beating heart. Somewhere south of valor is where heroes are made, sacrificing everything, and there often are laid. So many nameless battles and graves left unknown, leaving but a wall of names to children when they're grown. Everyone should be remembered by more than just a wall. When your children share your story, it gives pride to one and all. May God bless each and every one of you, our fallen heroes and their families, and those currently in harm's way. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Creed. Colonel, thank you. Our next speaker, I like to say, is sitting at the cool table because it's mine. Commander Paul Galante was raised in an Army family in many states, Japan, France, Germany, and Turkey. He graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1962 and entered Navy jet flight training. He departed for Vietnam with Light Jet Attack Squadron 216, is it 216 or 216? 216. Aboard the USS Hancock in November of 1965. Shot down and captured while flying his 97th combat mission in June of 1966, he remained a prisoner of war in North Vietnam's infamous Hanoi Hilton for nearly 7 years. Released in February of 1973, he served in Navy recruiting in Richmond, earned the Master of Commerce degree from the University of Richmond, and served in the office of the Commandant as a battalion officer at the U.S. Naval Academy. His personal military decorations include the Silver Star, 2 Legions of Merit with Combat V, the Bronze Star with Combat V, 9 Air Medals, and 2 Purple Hearts. After retiring from the Navy, he was the CEO of the Virginia Pharmaceutical Association, the Medical Society of Virginia, and the Science Museum of Virginia Foundation. The board of the Virginia War Memorial Foundation named its new $8 million education center after him and his wife, Phyllis Eason Galante, a William & Mary graduate who became a national celebrity during his captivity. In 2010, Governor McDonnell appointed him Commissioner of the Virginia Department of Veterans Services and to the Board of Visitors of the Virginia Military Institute, VMI. He also serves on the Advisory Committee on Former POWs to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Widowed from his wife of 51 years in 2014, he now lives in Richmond, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce one of the most positive people in the United States. He knows who he is because here he comes walking already. Ladies and gentlemen, retired Navy Commander Paul Galante.
Thank you. Please. This is going to be very short. First of all, I'd like to thank George Lutz for putting this together. I met George, I think I was one of the first people he talked to when he started doing this a zillion years ago. And I said, yeah, lots of luck. But, you know, he is proof positive what you can do with enough determination. And he's got determination 100 times more than most people. My former POW buddy, who was supposed to be here tonight, called up beside himself. I decided I wasn't going to do this anymore about 6 months ago. And anyway, I've done it 3 times in 2 days now, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And so anyway, George, I'd only do it for you and these wonderful people. Nobody, repeat, nobody knows what everyone in this room has gone through. It's bad enough losing a family member, but to lose them, no matter how honorably in combat or whatever, it's something there's no way you can get over it. And I feel humbled just being here. George wanted me to do a bunch of stuff when I was running the State Department of Veterans Services. I said, George, I can't, because I'm going to crack up. I'm just going to lose it, getting up in front of the group. And as I look around here, I often wonder, ever since every one of you has gone through this awful experience, do you have the same feelings I do about airheaded millennials who just take this country for granted? And the ones that Jesse Waters, the ones that Jesse Waters interviews late at night to demonstrate their outstanding knowledge of this country they believe in, so you can see where the appreciation comes from. I just feel sorry for them when I look at there's somebody or 2 or 3 from each table, relatives who have lost somebody for a purpose bigger than themselves. And when I hear the airheads talking about that, I'm going to go through very quickly on this because it's been a long night. You got many more important things to do here. I was a typical Navy tail hooker back in the day when they had antennas, back when you were a little boy, Congressman Regal. We used to fly around and screw everybody's television reception up. And in fact, we naval aviators like to take credit for cable television because that's the only way you can stop from doing that. And I'm not going to go through the POW. There's been a lot of stuff written about it. Some of the biggest heroes of the Vietnam War lived in Virginia Beach. There's still George Coker's still here. Jeremiah Denton was one of the big leaders. There's a television piece coming out about him, a new one that's written. It's absolutely the best thing I've seen about our experience. But Jerry Denton lived right here in Virginia Beach. Jim Mulligan still lives in Virginia Beach. You got some real heroes down here. I was a West Coaster, so I didn't see this till I came back and went through flight training out at Oceana. So I did get my chance to screw up your television for a little while. But anyway, while I was gone, my wife became a celebrity. When President Nixon had all of the POWs and family members out to the White House in what was the largest state dinner ever held, still to this day, at the White House. They had the Strolling Strings, the Air Force Strolling Strings, and all of the chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and more admirals and generals and congressmen and senators and that I never thought I'd see in a lifetime. But my wife said, "Come here, Paul, I want you to meet somebody." And went up, and there's this little short guy with curly hair and thick glasses, and she said, "Dr. Kissinger, I'd like to meet you to meet my husband, Paul." And he looked up and he said, "Your wife, she gave me so much trouble." And this is my shy little bride who I married at William and Mary. She was going to spend her entire life being barefoot and pregnant, standing on the pier waving goodbye to Sir Galahad sailing over the horizon. So anyway, she turned out to something until she died. She never talked about any of that. I'd heard a little bit every once in a while, but I really didn't appreciate how much she had done on my behalf. Very similar to what each of you are doing to keep the memories of your loved ones alive. But she moved mountains, and she wasn't pregnant before I went overseas. When I came back, and we took care of that pretty quickly. And my 2 boys and all 4 grandchildren now live in the same zip code in Richmond. And I think of growing up in an Army family, living all over the world, moving every single year, how lucky I am just to have them. But I came back, and I'd read on the airplane coming back, we were all standing up smelling the flight nurse's perfume, because we hadn't smelled that for a long, long, long time. And they were very nice about it. And we said, "You don't mean to be fresh, but can I smell your perfume?" I said, "Oh." But they had some magazines for us to read. I was reading Ms. Magazine, and it talked about all the changes. And Gloria Steinem was talking about this, that, and the other thing. And I decided I better do something when I get back and get everything straight right off the bat. So I said, "Fellas, I've been reading about this stuff coming back in the airplane. Just before we go launching off into phase 2 of our marriage, I want you to know that I'm going to run things around here." So she looked up at me and I said, "Yes, Paul." And so for the rest of the time, it works, guys. The rest of the time she was alive, I ran things, the dishwasher and the lawnmower. It was a wonderful life with her. And she's buried up in Arlington now, where my parents are both buried, where her parents are both buried. I lost my brother, who was a West Point graduate. By the way, we graduated the same hour. For 4 years, we stared across at each other at that football game. My parents split up, and one would sit on one side, and the president crossed the field. They'd come back around. And so I can commiserate with these Army guys and this crack about being athletes and stuff like that. Every day, I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to do it. All I can tell you is that I felt so bad about it. One of my roommates is an retired Army general up in Richmond. We gave him 58 points because that was his class at West Point. We gave him 58 points on the game. We felt so bad. There are a couple of things I just want to close real quickly. I learned there was a documentary about our Vietnam POW experience several years ago, and it was put out by the Air Force Academy class of 1965 and Boeing Aircraft. And it was a scattering, and there were about 30 of us in it talking, but Sybil Stockdale, Admiral Stockdale's wife, and I got the last words of this great Air Force production. And went down, you hear Sybil Stockdale's voice in the background as the credits are rolling at the end of the movie. And, it ended with the airplanes flying through the clouds, and it's just so very glorious. And Sybil Stockdale was saying for 8 years, that newspaper was mine every morning. Now he's home and he thinks it's his. What's going on here? and they'd ask me what 3 things I learned. And I said, I learned a lot more than 3 things. No, what 3 things? Come on, give us 3 things. Well, I wasn't as tough as I thought I was. I mean, I just, my whole experience at the Naval Academy and the personal combat, everything else, I thought I was a pretty tough guy, but I found out very quickly in solitary confinement and just getting hammered and beaten on all the time that I really wasn't as, I was going to be like Steve McQueen and just, Atlanta Joe. It's a lot tougher to do than it sounds. And the second thing I think of was, no matter how bad I had it in Hanoi, and I had some pretty rough times, somebody else always had it worse. And I started thinking about that, about how good I have it compared to them. And I start concentrating on that and worrying about them, trying to figure out some way to help out whoever was getting hammered worse than I'd been hammered, was getting hammered at the time. And I felt a lot better. And I said, that has a lot of applications in life. No matter how bad we have it, somebody else always has it worse. And the last thing, and this is actually engraved in concrete at the Virginia War Memorial. Something was saying quotes from Chesty Puller and engraved on all these other Virginians whose names are up there, and they took my quote. And I was thinking one day, since I was home, it's really wonderful here. There are no bad downsides to being in the country, and it just. I looked up, said, every morning is different from when I was in Hanoi. And in concrete, in the main foyer of the room is my quote, which said, there is no such thing as a bad day when there's a doorknob on the inside of the door. Freedom, that's what it's all about. Your loved ones died for that. Thank you.
Wow. And I'm sitting next to him. Paul, I think I speak for all of us. We are very glad you're with us tonight. And now, please forgive me because I am going to deliver the shortest introduction of the night. I call him the man. Ladies and gentlemen, George Lutz.
No, thank you. Thank you. Please sit down. Wow. Thank you all for being here. 10 years ago, this month, I joined that family that none of us wanted to ever become a member of, the Gold Star community. And I will tell you, 10 years later, it still hurts like yesterday. And I'm sorry if I'm emotional. But the reason we're here is to be able to share whatever it is that we're going on in this journey. The grief, the sorrow, the happiness, the anger, the joy, whatever it may be. This is an opportunity, I hope, that many of you have taken advantage of and just been able to release and feel safe. And none of this wouldn't happen without a great team that has been with the organization, some from the very beginning, some just recently. But I would just like to ask the volunteers that have been on this journey with me to just stand up. The MDV crowd, Tia and Chris and Paul and Laura, if she's here, and Jacqueline. Please stand up so we might thank you. Jim. Mark and Nancy, all of those. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. But I don't think that the Gold Star families tonight have been given enough credit or recognition, so I would ask once again for all those in this room who have sacrificed your loved one for our nation to please stand. Please stand. Hold your applause. Everyone in this room, please stand who has sacrificed their loved one for our nation. Please stand. Wait, don't clap yet. Everybody's standing. Now, please give these families the recognition and the honor. Please. Rousing applause for these families. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're all my family. I only have a few things that I want to get across, but as an organization, you know that the four cornerstones of our existence are built around just four simple words: to establish a national symbol recognizing all military fallen heroes from the beginning of our country's history, to educate our nation on the importance of remembering sacrifice and what it means to have given all for this nation, to make individual presentations to families and recognize them by name, letting them know that we have not forgotten and will never forget, and to bring a level of comfort, because as I mentioned, we've all become a part of a collective family, and that will never change, ever. And so to bring a measure of comfort is so very important. Well, one of the things that we do is to have this yearly event, but also we do what's called a Run for the Fallen. And for the third year now, we have conducted the Virginia Run for the Fallen, which focuses on Virginia lives lost on the War on Terror. But this year we ran for 380 Virginians from Fort Story to Arlington Cemetery, 250 miles over 4 days. And if you haven't been involved in that, please come out and stand by a mile marker, stand by your loved one's mile marker. But we have a short video that I think summarizes the depth of the impact of this event that we have, and it features Keelan Dunn, son of Terry and Gary Campbell, and I'd like for you to watch this video for this short time.
It was a quiet day. It's a visit no parent, no spouse, no family would ever want to ever experience. Being the point man, being that person out front, he was inclined to fight till the very last breath.
And salute! Except for 5 Marine. Ready?
The Run for the Fallen is running to remember all of the Virginians who gave their life during the period of the War on Terror. Running for 4 days for 250 miles, stopping each mile to honor an individual by name.
Ready? 2!
He laughed, he smiled all the time, regardless of the situation. That was his mission, is to make you feel better. We can never allow our fallen to be forgotten.
Mile 14 is for two really good friends who served in combat in Iraq with. It means a lot to me to make sure we honor those guys and never forget their names, and make sure we keep their legacies alive.
Big thing for me is the families. Coming out and seeing them is really why I do this. The emotion that they have, and just to see that people still remember.
You and your guys. Good session. Thanks.
When others choose to run or walk or do anything, take any moment of their busy schedules to say we remember, they have no idea what kind of gift they're giving.
Lance Corporal Keelan T. Dunn, February 18th, 2010, United States Marine Corps.
Hey, salute. Ready, 2.
The pain, the sweat, the tears, it represent all of the things that our heroes lived and died for, something that we as Americans can never forget. Look at them, Keelan. They're doing it for you. This is all for you. And for that, there is no greater honor.
There are 1 or 2 runners in the room. If you guys would stand up, please. I don't know where you're seated, but please stand up. Oh, they're standing over on the side there, against the wall, to my right, in uniform. Oh, over there too? There's Adam. Thank you, guys. We're going to move into the flag presentations, but I wanted to say one thing before I did this, because I didn't want to do it afterwards. It just wouldn't be appropriate. But when you see what we're doing in honoring individually by name, I want you to know that our mission as an organization is to make sure that every family in America who has ever lost a loved one in the history of our country is presented with an individual flag that calls attention to their loved one and enables us to speak their name out loud. Going back generations, and we're all going to participate that in a moment. But I want to tell you this, we have a 4-year waiting list for families that have asked us for flags that we cannot meet their expectation. 4 years. We present a flag on the average of 1 every single day, somewhere in the country. That's how much we're involved and engaged. 1 every day. Yet every day, I get a new request. So you can see that doesn't move very fast in terms of satisfying those requests. And some have been waiting literally 4 years. Why? Because there's no funding. This isn't a fundraising event. I'm saying this because I want the Gold Star families here to know that we are doing everything we can to meet those requests. And I want those of you here who are not Gold Star families to realize the impact that having a presentation made to a family means. We started something that we call the Family Legacy Fund. And we're trying to raise $1 million so that we can satisfy all 1,300 families on the current waiting list and have enough in reserve to be able to meet these daily requests. As you leave the room, on the right-hand side, there's an envelope that talks about the Legacy Fund. Please take it. I'm not soliciting, I'm terrible at it. But I want you to know that we are doing everything we can to make sure families receive the honor that they so deserve. So please take one of these letters, give it to somebody else. But I want you to realize the impact and the importance. It breaks my heart to get letters, emails that say, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. When will I get my flag? And I will tell you that some of my staff will tell you as well that it just is heartbreaking. So that's my few minutes on that. But I'll let you know that we never stop. And as long as I'm breathing and those in this room are breathing, we will never stop remembering. Those that are going to be a part of tonight's presentation, please come forward, get into place. Gary, if you'll come up first. Many of you know the Honor and Remember flag and have seen the Honor and Remember flag, and maybe you don't know exactly what it means, and I'm just going to do a short, brief introduction to the meaning and symbolism. You can walk right up to the end, Gary. The Honor and Remember flag is very unique and distinct. It was created and established to be a national symbol of remembrance. Right now, we have 21 state adoptions. 21 states have officially made this their state symbol of remembrance. And of course, eventually we'll have all 50, and congressmen, right? Not putting you on the spot. Eventually, this will be our national symbol of remembrance. The red field stands for the sacrifice of blood shed for our country. There is no better color than American flag red. The white beneath, the purity of that sacrifice, because every one of our men and women, regardless of conflict or war or what you designate it as, went over with a pure heart and said to their families and their friends, don't worry, we've got it covered, we'll be back. The blue star in the center goes back to World War I, when a solid blue star was hung on the windows and doors of family members who had someone out in active duty. When that blue star was covered with a gold star, it meant that that loved one was not coming home. That is where we get the term Gold Star Mother, Gold Star Father, Gold Star Son, Gold Star Families. The folded flag beneath reminds us of that which was folded and handed to the family at the memorial of their loved one. I like to say that this country was built on one folded flag at a time. The flames above it, an eternal reminder that we will never forget. The blue flame emanates from that folded flag as that single life that has departed but joins those others that have gone before him or her. And the words below, we will always honor their sacrifice and remember them individually by name. And tonight, that's what we will continue to do as we all participate in honoring 6 particular families tonight, individually by name. Thank you, Gary. I'm going to say one more thing, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark. As we're presenting these flags begin in a triangular configuration. They're folded this way because they mirror this American flag that was folded and handed to the families. But unlike the American flag, which was folded reverently and respectfully, encased in a shadow box, never to be unfolded, the Honor and Remember flag is only folded this way one time. And once it is unfolded, it is meant to be a celebration and a remembrance of that life, to be proudly displayed so that his or her story may continue. Mark? This is the last one.
Will the Vore family please come forward? Sergeant Kenneth Stephen Vore was born the fifth of 8 children of Clyde and Rachel Vore. He was a fun-loving guy who loved to hunt and fish. He had an appreciation of sports and enjoyed playing baseball even after high school. He graduated from Miami East in Castown, Ohio in 1962. He went by Kenny or Zeke, his high school nickname. He met Karen, and they married in April of 1965. They had 2 daughters, Kimberly and Kathleen. He worked at A.O. Smith before enlisting in the Army in the buddy program after 2 failed draft attempts. Kenny went to boot camp in 1968 at Fort Dix, New Jersey. He then went on to further training at the NCO school at Fort Benning, Georgia, and ended up as a drill instructor at Fort Polk, Louisiana, where his 3rd daughter, Christina, was born. His tour in Vietnam started on 15 January 1970. He was slightly wounded on 11 April 1970 when he received a wound to his back by a fragment. He was treated and returned to duty. On 20 May 1970, Sergeant Kenneth Vore was killed in action in Cambodia. With complete disregard for his own safety, he rallied his men to a defensive perimeter in order to fight off an undetermined number of hostile forces. Sergeant Vore successfully organized the position and was mortally wounded along with 2 others in the process. He was awarded posthumously the Silver Star, the Bronze Star Medal with the V Device for Valor, First Oak Leaf Cluster, the Purple Heart Medal, the Combat Infantryman's Badge, the Army Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, the Expert Badge with Grenade Bar, Sharpshooter Badge with Rifle and Automatic Rifle Bars, and Marksman Badge. Kenny has, in addition to his 3 daughters, 7 grandchildren. He is laid to rest in Maple Hill Cemetery, Tip City, Ohio, and his name is inscribed on the Vietnam Wall, panel W10, line 73. Okay.
This plaque reads, "This honor and remember flag is presented with eternal gratitude and respect in memory of Sergeant Kenneth S. Vore. With this flag, we honor this patriot's unwavering dedication and remember their selfless sacrifice. By displaying this symbol collectively as a nation, we humbly recognize the enormity of your loss and respectfully say, thank you."